Welcome to Private Fame. Tonight's story is about Whitney Houston. Not the diva, not the 6-time Grammy winner, not the woman who could break glass with a single note, but the soul underneath the spotlight, slowly breaking under the weight of being perfect. She had the voice of an angel, and a life filled with demons. Behind every award, every flawless performance, was a woman fighting addiction, toxic love, and a world that never let her be anything less than magic. The cameras loved her when she sparkled, but they watched even closer when she fell. So what does it feel like to be the voice of a generation, but feel voiceless in your own story? To give the world every ounce of your gift, only to lose yourself in the process? Why did it suck to live as Whitney Houston? Maybe because she was never allowed to just be human. If you're staying with me tonight, like the video, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from, and what time your night begins. You are born into sound. Not silence, not obscurity, but song. It wraps around you like cloth, like blood, like some ancient inheritance passed through breath and womb. Your mother sings gospel in the church like it's a form of exorcism. Your godmother is Aretha. Your cousin is Dion. You are cradled by melody before you ever understand the weight of meaning. And when you cry for the first time, it's not a wail. It's pitch perfect. You don't get to choose who you are. They decide early. That one. She's the one. The prodigy, the blessing, the next, the vessel. Before you're 10, grown women step back when you open your mouth. Not because you're loud, but because your voice holds something they buried. Grief, hope, deliverance, rage, and they don't know how to stand in its presence without unraveling. Your voice, even then, is too big for the room. You start to understand that greatness is a form of danger. You learn early that God is not the only thing worshipped in your church. Voice is holy. Performance is currency. And your body is a stage before you have breasts or fear or even a name that belongs to you. They call you Nippy, but you're Whitney now. The girl who sounds like prophecy. The girl who sounds like money. By the time you're a teenager, the industry already has a seat for you. Polished, pre-cut, market ready. They want your smile, your diction, your skin light but not too light, your hair smooth but not too smooth. They want your voice without your story. They want your gospel soaked in pop polish. You say yes. What else is there to say? Clive Davis finds you. He listens like a man who's just discovered a weapon. You're 19, and your voice could start wars, could end them. You record your debut album like it's breathing. Every take is clean. Every note shines. When it drops, the world changes. You don't just chart. You take the charts hostage. 7 consecutive #1 singles, platinum, multi-platinum, more. The kind of success that warps reality around it. You win Grammys like they're door prizes. You don't walk into rooms, you float, carried on the shoulders of a public that believes in your perfection more than they believe in gravity. But you know, deep down, there's a cost. You see the looks. From black audiences who whisper that you sound too white. From white executives who say you're safe. You don't belong anywhere. You belong to everyone, and slowly, piece by piece, they begin carving you down into a shape that fits the fantasy. You smile through it. Pose, sign autographs, hit the notes, hit them again, and again, and again. Until your voice becomes not a gift, but an obligation. You meet Bobby. He is chaos. Fire wrapped in a smile. He is everything the label warned you to stay away from. So of course you want him. Not because he's safe, because he's the only one who sees you behind the perfection. He doesn't care about your image. He doesn't want your Grammys. He wants the girl from Newark who smoked weed behind the church steps and cussed when no one was listening. He makes you laugh like no one else. He calls you Whit, not Whitney. And for a while you believe that might be enough to save you. But Bobby is drowning too, and neither of you knows how to swim. So you pull each other under again and again, mistaking the flood for love. Drugs enter the picture the way shadows enter a room, slowly, unnoticed, until you can't remember what the room looked like without them. Cocaine, weed, pills, escape in powder form? You say it's just fun. You say it's not like that. You say it's under control. You lie. To them, to him, to yourself. But the body never lies. And your voice, your golden, God-given, once-in-a-generation voice, starts to falter. You miss rehearsals. You cancel shows. The press begins to notice. Whispers turn to headlines. Whitney's voice not what it used to be. Erratic behavior. Unprofessional. You smile through interviews and deny everything, but the cameras catch your hands shaking, your jaw clenching, your eyes scanning rooms like they owe you answers. And still, you keep singing. Because it's the only place left where you feel like yourself. You have a daughter, Bobby Christina. You hold her like salvation. She smells like newness, like a future you might still deserve. You try to clean up. For her. For you. But the world keeps calling. The critics. The tabloids. The expectations. Your husband. Your own pain. It's never quiet. So you use. Not to get high. To get small. To disappear into the folds of your own skin until the noise turns to white. And you can finally sleep. By the time Being Bobby Brown airs, you're already a ghost in your own footage. The show is supposed to be entertainment, but it's a car crash. A long, slow, unraveling, televised in high definition. You watch yourself on screen, twitchy, slurring, erratic, and you don't recognize that woman. But she has your name. Your laugh? Your face? You turn off the TV, but the show doesn't stop. It keeps running in the background of your life. On every screen, in every conversation. You disappear for a while, rehab silence. More rumors, more returns. You try to stage a comeback. I look to you. The voice is thinner, rougher, less divine, but still yours. You tour. You sing. You sweat through the notes like prayers. But the audience hears the cracks. And they call them proof the world does not forgive fallen angels. It marvels at their fall, writes essays about their decline, but it does not make room for their healing. It wants spectacle, not truth. And on February 11th, 2012, the spectacle ends. Bathtub, hotel, Beverly Hills. You are 48, and the silence that follows is louder than anything you ever sang. They find you, face down in warm water that's gone cold by the time they arrive. Your body still. Your heartbeat long gone, surrounded by the residue of glamour and despair. Hotel towels, prescription bottles, champagne flutes left like the remains of a celebration no one enjoyed. The news breaks before the coroner can zip the bag. Whitney Houston dead at 48. The headlines come fast, slick with tragedy. Queen of pop dies in hotel room. The final note, from angel to addict. The industry you carried for decades now moves like vultures in Armani. Box set deals, tribute playlists, Grammy montages queued up in real time, hands ringing behind closed doors while voiceovers call you a legend with just enough detachment to avoid choking on their own complicity. But what they don't say, what they'll never say, is that you died long before that bathtub. You started dying the moment they taught you that your voice was your worth, that your body was a brand, that your skin needed smoothing, your image needed brightening, your edges needed sanding down for mass appeal. You started dying the first time they asked you to smile wider in interviews, to talk less urban, to dress more like someone who'd never been to Newark. You started dying when they told you how to be palatable, packageable, marketable, and then punished you when the pressure split you open. The autopsy says accidental drowning, with heart disease and cocaine listed like footnotes. But that's not the whole truth. The real cause was saturation. You were soaked, drenched in expectation, in trauma, in other people's fantasies. And no one survives that kind of flooding forever. They hold the funeral in Newark, your old church, a full circle finale. The pews are packed with celebrities, producers, singers who learned how to modulate their voices by studying yours note for note. They cry for the loss, yes, but also for themselves. For what they lost when you broke, proof that even perfection could collapse. Your casket gleams beneath stained glass, and someone sings, "I look to you" through sobs, and for a moment, they almost mean it. But the cameras are everywhere. Outside, people sell t-shirts with your face on them. Nippy forever. Inside, someone is already pitching the biopic. A script. A series. A way to monetize the mess without touching the truth. Because the truth doesn't test well. The truth doesn't sell out stadiums. The truth is this. You were never allowed to be whole. You were adored, yes. Revered, worshipped, but never allowed to be messy, complicated, angry, weak. You were America's sweetheart as long as you stayed quiet, hit the notes, smiled politely while they dissected you. But when the seams showed, when the pain bled through your vocals, when the interviews turned erratic, when your marriage turned into a punchline, suddenly you were dangerous, unstable, a cautionary tale in eyeliner and sweat. And what they never understood is that your voice was never a miracle. It was a survival mechanism, a controlled detonation. Every note you sang was a scream you reshaped into melody. Every run, every breathy falsetto, every gospel-glazed belt. They were weapons. They were shields. You weren't performing. You were pleading, and they clapped through it. After your death, they clean you up. Posthumous sainthood. They talk about your early albums like that's who you always were. As if the woman who sang "I Will Always Love You" and the woman on Being Bobby Brown were different creatures. As if one deserves mourning and the other deserves deletion. But they were both you. And if the world had made space for that duality, for divinity and damage, for voice and silence, for Whitney and Nippy, maybe the story wouldn't have ended in that bathtub. Maybe you would have grown old. Maybe your voice would have faded gently, like dusk. Maybe you would have held your daughter's child one day and said, "They almost killed me with love." But that's not the story they let you write. And now they own the pen. You don't get a second act. Not the real kind, just replicas, interpretations. 1,000 bootleg Whitney Houstons stitched together from tribute shows, impersonators, deepfakes, and PR eulogies. They remake your life in pixels and algorithms, teasers, trailers, reenactments. Actresses imitate your cadence. Vocal coaches analyze your technique. Fans upload Whitney at her peak compilations, as if your greatness only mattered when it was untainted, unslurred, unmarred by the unbearable reality of being human while female and famous and black. Your voice becomes property again. Licensed, curated, museumed. They use it to sell luxury cars, talent shows, concert holograms that flicker like ghosts. Audiences scream at a digital echo of you on stage, forgetting, or maybe choosing not to remember, that the real woman who made those sounds died alone in a hotel bathroom, trying to get small enough to feel safe in her own skin. The world always loved your voice more than your pain. Now, it doesn't even need your body to use you. They say the drugs ruined you, but it wasn't the drugs that broke your voice. It was the silence, the pretending, the smiling through interviews where your mouth said, "I'm fine," but your eyes said, "I haven't been real in years." You were a contradiction they couldn't allow to exist. A church voice with club scars, a clean image with messy truths. They needed you polished, so when you got too sharp, they dropped you, called you difficult, unraveled. They didn't want the whole Whitney, just the marketable fragments, and yet, even now, even posthumously, even wrapped in 100 tabloid headlines and cautionary tales, you are still the standard. Every young girl belting into a mirror is trying to chase your ghost. Every televised singing competition has at least one trembling teenager trying to climb "I Have Nothing" like it's Everest, not realizing that song wasn't just written, it was survived. You didn't just hit those notes, you bled through them. And the irony? They still ask what happened to Whitney, like it's a mystery. What happened to you is what happens to any woman who is both holy and haunted in a world that only knows how to worship or crucify. What happened is that you were expected to be flawless, grateful, pliable, and when you weren't, they chewed your brilliance until it dulled and then blamed you for not shining anymore. They made you a queen and then scolded you for acting like royalty. They called you a diva, then punished you for demanding space. They gave you the crown, and when it got heavy, they said you were unfit to wear it. But here's the truth they don't print. You were not destroyed by your flaws. You were destroyed by their refusal to let you have them. They called it a comeback, as if returning to the stage after years of public humiliation, physical deterioration, and chemical dependency was simply a narrative beat, the obligatory second act in the rise, fall, rise formula. They feed the public like gospel, as if the wounds weren't still bleeding beneath the makeup, beneath the wigs, beneath the strained soprano and the fixed, too wide smile stretched over lips that had forgotten how to mean it. You stood on those stages, trembling just slightly, voice thinner now, breathless at the edges, and they listened not for the music but for the crack, the falter, the fall. They didn't come to be moved, they came to confirm what they already believed, that you were finished, that the angelic voice had decayed, that Whitney Houston, the voice of a generation, the celestial echo of American dreams, had become a tabloid opera, a walking tragedy, a ghost with mascara and stage lights for an exorcism. And you gave it to them, not because you wanted to, but because the alternative, disappearing completely, was more terrifying. You needed the applause, not for validation, but as proof that the world could still hear you, that your voice still existed outside your skull, that you hadn't been swallowed entirely by silence. The irony was bitter. The same voice that carried you into rooms that would have locked you out, the voice that turned record execs into apostles and audiences into worshippers, was now dragging you across cracked hotel carpets and into meetings about insurance policies and rehab stints. They started whispering about liability, about whether you could complete a tour without dying. Your voice had become a risk assessment, a math problem. You were no longer an artist, but an actuarial table with a mezzo-soprano range. They sent handlers to follow you, not because they cared, but because your body still generated profit. So you smiled. You did interviews. You gave answers that sounded like press releases printed on worn-out vocal cords. You thanked God. You nodded humbly, and afterward you would go back to your suite, lock the door, and fill the bathtub. You weren't trying to die every time, you were just trying to disappear for a little while, to float, to be weightless, to not have to be Whitney Houston even for 10 minutes, to just be nippy again, a girl with no expectations, no cameras, no obligations, just water, steam, and silence. They said you chose Bobby over your career, like you were trading stocks instead of clinging to the only person who seemed to love you without asking for a hit single in return. Bobby wasn't your salvation, but he wasn't your executioner either. He was a mirror, cracked, chaotic, impossible to hold still. But when you looked into him, you saw yourself, not as the world demanded you be, but as you actually were. Vulnerable, furious, full of need, full of fire, not graceful, but real. And that reality was the only anchor you had. But the public didn't want reality. They wanted the fairy tale. They wanted America's sweetheart who could hit every note and say all the right things. They wanted the prom queen with gospel lungs. They didn't want to know about the bruises, the screaming matches, the drugs in the bathroom drawer, the ache in your chest when your daughter started asking why people on the street called her mama a crackhead. They wanted you frozen in time in sequins, holding the long note at the end of I Will Always Love You, tears shining but never falling, voice soaring but never shaking. When you started shaking, they stopped listening. And still, the music industry clung to you like a body trying to milk a corpse. You were booked on tours that you weren't physically ready for, shoved into recording sessions with producers who played you backtracks and asked, "Can you still do it?" Like you were a machine with a reset button. You tried. You gave what was left. Sometimes it was enough to trick them. Sometimes it wasn't. And each time your voice cracked, each time the pitch fell just shy, each time you forgot a lyric or needed to start again, you saw it, the judgment, the disappointment, the quiet horror that maybe, just maybe, they'd already wrung every note out of you. But you kept showing up. Not because you wanted to, but because what else was there? You weren't trained to do anything else, you weren't built for obscurity, you were built for applause, built for spectacle, built to be brilliant or be nothing at all. But brilliance has a half-life, and yours was running out. You begin to notice the small humiliations first. Not the headlines or the cancellation rumors or the harsh reviews. You've long since grown callous to those. But the quiet betrayals in your own body, the way your breath cuts short on the second chorus, the way your throat tightens just a fraction before a high note you used to scale effortlessly, the way you start rehearsals later and end them earlier, faking smiles and nods while your vocal cords scream for rest, for mercy, for silence. You catch yourself mid-sentence in conversations, forgetting names, slurring syllables, not because you're high, not always, but because your brain is tired of running this machine you've trapped yourself in. You used to be a symphony in motion, now you're a cassette rewound too many times. But no one says it out loud, not to your face. They just adjust the mic volume, book smaller venues, swap out the keys to suit what's left. They never ask if you want to keep going, only if you can. There are days you don't leave the hotel room, days you lie in bed, staring at the ceiling as the TV mutters in the background, some daytime courtroom drama echoing your own slow motion disintegration. Your assistant knocks, leaves food at the door. You don't touch it. You sip something acidic and call it breakfast. You light a cigarette, then another. Watch the smoke curl like the tail end of a prayer you don't have the language for anymore. You call Bobby sometimes. Not to talk, just to hear a voice that doesn't expect anything from you. You call your daughter less often, because the sound of her asking how you are feels like a punch in the throat. You begin rehearsing lies the way you used to rehearse ballads. I'm fine. Just tired. No, it's allergies. It was just one glass. You get good at it again. You start interviews with jokes, with charm, with self-deprecation so disarming the hosts don't even realize they're part of your cover-up. They laugh with you while your hands shake under the table. You let the makeup team airbrush your exhaustion, tape your wig down like armor, paint your mouth into something that suggests joy. The clothes still fit. The silhouette still stuns. But it's a wax figure now. A museum piece. You're not Whitney. You're Whitney Houston trademark. A brand. A ghost. A headline trying to look human. The performances become transactional. You go on stage to silence the press. You sing because the label needs a win. You smile because the venue manager is watching. The audiences clap, but it doesn't reach you. You hear the applause like traffic. Distant. Meaningless. Background noise. You used to cry when you sang I Have Nothing. Now, if a tear falls, it's from muscle memory, not emotion. You don't feel the songs anymore. You remember feeling them. It's not the same. One night, backstage in some glittering European venue, a stagehand hands you a towel and says, "You were amazing, Miss Houston." And you stare at him for a full 5 seconds before realizing he's serious. That performance had felt like hell. Off-key, off-beat, shallow. But he doesn't care. He just wanted the photo. And you gave him that. That's what you are now. Not the voice, not the presence, not the moment. Just the proof. That you still exist. That you can still stand. You start sleeping with the lights on. Not because you're afraid of the dark, but because you're afraid of being alone in it. You keep the TV on at low volume just to have another voice in the room. You reread old press clippings like autopsies. You try to listen to your early records, but they sound like someone else. Someone lighter. Someone whole. You close the laptop. You light another cigarette. You say nothing. At some point, rehab becomes a regular stop. Not salvation, not cure, just maintenance. You go in, detox, smile for the cameras when you come out. The same cycle, over and over. They call it recovery. You know better. You know it's just a break in the fall. A commercial between the acts. You're not healing, you're hiding. Keeping up appearances while the structure continues to rot beneath the foundation. And you still love your daughter, fiercely, desperately. But she sees it, the weight, the pain, the shaking hands and half-eaten meals and long stretches of silence. She hears it in your voice when you say, "I'm okay." She nods, but she knows. Children always know, especially when they love you. Especially when they've learned that love means watching someone disappear slowly. Eventually, even the label starts whispering about legacy, about boxed sets, about the old hits, about celebrating the catalog instead of pushing the new album. You nod. You agree. You're tired of pretending you're in control. Tired of forcing something out of yourself that's long since bled dry. You let them take over. Let them sell what's left. You take one last bath. You let the water rise. Not a ritual. Not an escape. Just a moment of stillness. One you don't have to perform in. And then, finally, quiet. There are no closing credits. No choir swelling behind the final breath. No slow pan out of the camera as the water stills and your eyes fix on nothing. Just a coroner's van in the alley of a 5-star hotel. Paparazzi lenses trembling in anticipation. A lobby full of staff pretending not to notice what they already know. No glamour, no soft focus montage. Just death, bare and unremarkable. The woman with the voice of God, gone in a hotel bathroom with a needle of gossip still fresh in her vein and a nation sharpening its hashtags. The news breaks faster than your body cools. Twitter floods with REPS, with GIFs, with half-remembered lyrics. News anchors say your name with the tone they use for celebrities who've disappointed them. Part sadness, part scolding, part greed. Gone too soon, they say. A troubled genius. A tragic end to a beautiful voice. As if any of them had ever listened to you without waiting for you to crack. They replay clips on a loop. Your greatest hits, your worst interviews, the national anthem, the Diane Sawyer train wreck. They package your life into convenient arcs. The prodigy, the diva, the downfall. People who couldn't name 3 of your songs last week suddenly have dissertations about your legacy. They speak about you like they always loved you. Like they defended you when you were alive. Like they didn't laugh at every meme that used your pain as punchline. They post photos of you in sequins, lips parted mid-note, backlit like a saint. They forget the way they mocked your voice when it faltered. Forget the headlines that called you washed up and unreliable. Forget the tabloids that stalked your daughter, your marriage, your every relapse. Forget how many late-night hosts made careers off imitating your dissent. Your daughter is 13. She sees the news on her phone before anyone can reach her. She screams until her throat bleeds and no one has an answer. She will carry your name like an anvil, not a crown. Every stage of her life will echo with the sound of your silence. Every introduction, every headline, every whisper in the hallway at school will remind her that her mother died not as a legend but as a punchline. And they will ask her for the rest of her life if she sings. The funeral is a circus. Gospel choirs, politicians, celebrities who hadn't returned your calls in years. They cry on camera. They wear sunglasses. They give statements. Clive Davis speaks like a man losing a product. Oprah cries. Alicia Keys performs a version of your song so reverent it might as well be an exorcism. Everyone talks about your impact, your immeasurable talent, the pain behind the beauty. They say they loved you. They say they miss you. No one says they watched you break for decades and did nothing. Your casket is white, your body made up to resemble the woman they remember, not the one you died as. Your face painted into a performance of peace. The body is cold, the voice is gone. And still they whisper, she was the greatest. You are buried, they release doves, someone films it, someone sells it, someone plays I Will Always Love You, and people cry like they've just discovered that love isn't a guarantee. That a gift like yours comes with teeth. The story does not end there, of course. They will drag your legacy up every few years, dust it off, frame it around whatever young artist dares to reach for your octave. They will compare every rising black female vocalist to you, not in admiration, but in warning. They will say, don't end up like Whitney. As if that's a choice. As if you were given options. As if the system didn't build you just to break you for ratings. You will become a parable, a brand, an IP. Your voice will live longer than your body. It already has. It will echo in karaoke bars, in wedding receptions, in military ceremonies. They will play you in restaurants, in malls, on planes. You will soundtrack first dances, last kisses, breakdowns behind the wheel. Your voice will continue to be holy in a world that couldn't stomach your humanity. And maybe that's all you ever were. A voice too big for the woman carrying it. A gift wrapped in flesh they didn't think to preserve. A miracle they loved right up until it started bleeding. Good night, Whitney. Not the icon, not the headline, not the voice, just the woman. You tried, you loved, you sang. And that was never the tragedy. The tragedy is that it still wasn't enough. There is no peace in the aftermath, only a gradual muting of public grief until it calcifies into nostalgia. They begin to remember you incorrectly, not out of malice, but necessity. The full truth is too jagged to live with. So they sand it down, make it palatable, turn you into a kind of cultural lullaby. You become shorthand for wasted talent, a cautionary tale in lace and gospel, and slowly, inevitably, the woman disappears beneath the myth. They canonize the version of you that never existed. Always elegant, always graceful, eternally untouched by the ugliness you drowned in. No cracked notes, no public meltdowns, no visible sadness, just the high notes, looped eternally as if to say, look how pure she was before she fell. The documentaries come, slick, moody, half-hearted apologies wrapped in interviews from people who weren't there when it mattered. They splice old footage with sad piano chords and commentary from producers and friends who recall moments of brilliance with a tear in one eye and a camera in the other. We saw it happening, they say. We tried to help.